Welcome to today's sales practice. Today we're going to be practicing the skill that comes to us at least on a weekly basis, and that's converting a renter into someone who's going to purchase a home. So think about it. If you've been working on our team for a long time or even a short period of time, certainly you've gotten a call at some point where Scott's called you, me, and said, hey, I want you to call this person back. You get them on the phone and it turns out that they're saying, hey, I'm only looking to rent. I'm only looking to rent. I'm only looking to rent. And we start to hear that over and over again and condition ourselves to believing that that's indeed what they want and that's indeed what we're going to have to do with them is turn them into renters. So I'm going to give you a couple of addresses and you tell me what they all have in common. 11809 Euclid Avenue, 7315 Father for Scotty Avenue, 7313 Father for Scotty Avenue, 7311 Father for Scotty Avenue, 1403 Slate Court, 1401 Slate Court, 1399 Slate Court. Think about it. Where do you think I'm going? Every one of those people and then some, that's over $2 million in sales right there, were people that called me saying, I'm only interested in renting, and we were able to convert them to buyers. It's a great opportunity out there, but we have to know what to do. So we're going to go ahead and walk through the process and then actually practice it on one another today. The first step of the process is very similar to the step that you'd make if you knew the person was buying. Call them back and get them on the phone. Budget 5 to 10 minutes that you're going to spend on the phone with them. It'll be 5 minutes of pre-qualification. Questions you should be asking are, when are you looking to move? How soon are you looking to be there? Are you looking at other places or just the one that you called us about? How much are you looking to spend per month? Where do you live now? How much is your rent right now if you're renting? Those are the kind of questions that help us not only gauge their interest and urgency, but help us really pre-qualify them before they realize that this is only for sale so that we can determine what it is that they're looking for and if they've got realistic expectations. If they start answering to us, well, I'm looking for government subsidized housing and I want to spend $200 a month, clearly that's not someone that's going to be easy to convert. That would be a C or a D prospect, and we would probably find a way to politely get off the phone or refer them elsewhere. If they call us, or if on the phone they're saying things like, yeah, I want to spend no more than $2,000 a month and I want to be there in 90 days, suddenly they sound a lot like a buyer prospect. And those are the people where we'll spend the additional 5 minutes on. And the additional 5 minutes would be selling our services, selling over the phone the idea that renting may not be as advantageous or beneficial as buying, and then of course closing on an appointment, those three things. But the first part of the conversation is really just that pre-qualification, and you can never have too much practice at it. So why don't you guys go around the room right now and ask some of those pre-qualifying questions to one another. Just bark the questions out so that your minds are fresh and you're refreshed as to what those questions are to help you get in the heads of those potential buyers. So after you've pre-qualified them and you've realized now that they have the potential to be a buyer, we still have the reality that they don't want to buy. They're looking to rent. So we have to find a way to plant a seed. You've heard me say that before. We have to find a way to plant a seed with these people so that their minds open up to the possibility of buying before we just pitch them with our message. Remember, we've talked about it. We want to warm up, set up, give them our message, and close. Well, the warm up we've done during the pre-qualified process. Now we need to do the setup. So I'm going to give you an example that I used with Seth Raymond, and he was a buyer at Battery Park. He ended up working with Corey. He called on the Battery Park sign, and he was only interested in renting. Only interested in renting. I'm looking to spend $1,100, maybe $1,200 a month. And in my open-ended questions with him, while I was moving into my new house, mind you, in Independence, I'm bringing boxes up the stairs, and I'm just having a conversation with the guy. Hey, when are you looking to move? Where do you work? How'd you find Battery Park? Found, lo and behold, he's a doctor. His wife's a full-time nurse, if I recall correctly. They're making well over $100,000 a year. They've got money in the bank, and they're of the age where buying makes sense for them. So I asked him a question. I said, hey, Seth, I'm really sorry. We don't have any rentals anymore. I would have rented you my own house. You sound like a nice guy, but, that ship has sailed. Someone's living there already. Do you have any investments, just out of curiosity? Do you have any investments, just out of curiosity? I mean, think about that question. It's out there. It makes you say, wait, what? Do I have any investments? I said, well, Seth, a lot of people who call me, like yourself, are calling me looking to make their first big investment into a property that they can live in for a while and then collect the appreciation on when they sell it later, or rent it out and make it their first big investment. And I was just wondering, do you have any investments yet? That's all I'm asking. It's a real simple yes or no question. Of course, his answer at 26 years old was, well, no. So what are you saying? I said, well, Seth, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is I'd like to show you how these homes at Battery Park can be just as good as an investment as they would be as a home to rent while you're living here. Why don't we do this? I don't mind. Why don't I have one of my buyer specialists reach out to you, meet you at the property, give you a tour, and while you're there, we can talk a little bit about what it would look like for you financially to buy this home as opposed to rent it. You never know, it just might be worth your while. And if something comes on the market that's for rent in the meantime, we'll be sure to give you a call. How's that sound? Close. So we did our warm-up, right? That was our open-ended questions, right? We did our setup. We planted that seed. We asked that question. We said, do you have any investments, right? Then we hit him with our message. Now notice, I didn't give him the entire message out front because for this particular buyer, I was comfortable enough being cryptic with him. Sometimes we have to be a little more direct, and we're going to practice that argument in the next segment here. And then I hit him with a close. I made the appointment, right? So we got him to commit to an appointment out front. We were able to give him our message. We were able to warm him up so that he liked us in the beginning and handle it. That is the example of a perfect phone call conversion of a renter to a buyer when they catch you on the spot. The next part of the conversation is the complicated one, and this is the one where you'll have to take out your mortgage calculators. So go ahead, if you've got your mortgage calculators on your iPhones or Blackberries or your iPads or whatever it is, get the mortgage calculators open. If not, just go to Sean Hadley's First Federal of Lakewood page if you'd like. I think that's ffl.net/shadley. And get open a mortgage calculator. I want to give you guys the opportunity to understand why it's more logical for someone to buy than rent. And I'm going to give you a three-pronged approach, but sometimes not all of them apply. But we're going to go ahead and use the example of Seth and Sarah again, where all three of them really applied, and give you the opportunity to understand why it makes more sense. Oftentimes, the first reason it makes more sense is the simplest one. It just doesn't cost as much per month. If you're in an area that's a particularly desirable rental area, such as Battery Park, such as University Circle in Bluestone, Cleveland Heights, Lakewood, oftentimes it costs more money to pay in rent than it does to buy the exact same house outright on monthly payments, even with as little as 0 down, and certainly with 20%, 10%, or 5% down. Amazing. At Battery Park right now, if you bought one of our townhomes on West 73rd Street with 0 down, you'd be paying approximately $1,700 a month, maybe a little less than that, probably closer to $1,650 per month, all inclusive with your association dues, your monthly payments, and the little bit of taxes that are there. 0 down. That's what your payment would be. To rent that exact house out would probably be more, albeit slightly more, would probably be more money just from that. The simplest argument, if you know your market, is to give an example of a home that would cost more to rent than it would to buy. The next argument is a little bit more mathematical, so this is where you need to have your mortgage calculators and a pen and paper handy, but you need to understand it. It's called the building equity argument. So the easiest question that you ask a renter is this: Mr. Renter, how much are you looking to pay per month? Well, Scott, I'm looking to spend $2,000 a month in an apartment downtown. Okay, sounds good. So how much is that per year, Mr. Renter? That'd be 2,000 times 12 months. That'd be $24,000 over 12 months. Got it. Okay, great. And how long do you want to be in Cleveland for, Mr. Dr. Renter? Oh, you're going to be here for 3 years. Oh, okay, so we're going to rent for 3 years at $2,000 a month. So let me do my math right. So that's $2,000 a month times 36 months, actually. That comes out to, let's see if I can do this, check it. Okay, $72,000 in rent. Now, Mr. Dr. Renter, I want to ask you a question. At the end of your 36 months here, how much of the $72,000 do you get back? And then when you hear the crickets start chirping because the answer is so obvious, you've now planted a seed. $72,000 of wasted money in rent, guaranteed when you sign a lease that long for that much. And we have clients who have done it. So then we hit them with the second part of the argument now. Mr. Seller, are you familiar with, or buyer rather, are you familiar with a term called home equity? No, you're not? Would you mind if I tell you what that means? Okay, great. Home equity is the gap between what someone owes on a house at the time that they sell it and what they can actually sell it for. Spoken another way, if you bought this home today, Mr. Seller, for $250,000, and in 3 years you would assume it's still worth what? $250,000. Exactly, because we've agreed that the market has hit the bottom. If you assume that the house is worth the exact same that it was worth the day that you bought it, your mortgage principal balance will go down over those 3 years by approximately 2%. So if you mortgaged the whole $250,000, you might only owe about $240,000 or $241,000 at the end of the 2 to 3 years that you live here. So when you sell your home back, how much of the $250,000 that you borrow will you get back? Well, the answer is almost all of it, Mr. Seller. You might have to pay a realtor a commission to sell it for you, but that aside, you might get as much as all of it back. You know, prior to 2008, homes actually appreciated. So to refresh ourselves, at the end of your 3-year stay in an apartment, you got how much back? Zero, right? And how much did you spend? $72,000. Here, with this home at Battery Park, Mr. Buyer, this home will cost you $0 out front, maybe just a couple $1,000s in closing costs, far less than the $72,000 you're going to pay. And at the time you vacate, you could potentially sell it for and get 100%, if not very close to 100% of your initial investment back. So it's my hope that you understand argument number one off the tip of your tongue. Just find the rental that costs more than the monthly mortgage with little or nothing down. Argument number two is a little more mathematical, but you have to understand home equity. It's unacceptable for someone working at our caliber to not understand that concept of home equity. I explained it a long and verbose way. I want you to put it in your own words, but you need to understand home equity and what that privilege has, especially considering the market is bottomed out and it is leveled off. So it's going to become a relevant conversation again. The third argument is mortgage interest deduction. This is a mortgage interest tax deduction, and it's something that people oftentimes forget about, so I'm going to give it to you very simply. Whatever you pay in interest on your loan per year is deducted from your taxes as an expense that would eliminate income on a dollar for dollar basis. What I mean by that is that if you make and are taxed on $50,000 per year, and you pay in your mortgage $10,000 of interest that year, you will now only be taxed on $40,000 of income. I don't know what your tax rates are. I don't know. You have to consult your accountant to see what that benefit is. But suffice it to say, Mr. Buyer, when I bought my home, I saved about $4,000 a year in tax write-offs from my mortgage interest deduction. How much will you save renting? You won't save anything per year, Mr. Renter. If you were a buyer, however, you would either get money back, additional money back in your tax refund because you have another deduction, right? Or if you pay money at the end of the year, like I do, from 1099 income, it will lessen what you owe the government at the end of the year substantially. $4,000 and $5,000 comes tax time's a pretty big deal. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Buyer? And again, how much of that will you get when you're renting? And how much will you get from buying this home that you might spend $10,000 in interest per year on? Pretty big deal, right? So those are the three arguments. Try to think about them. Try to memorize them. They're very important. Remember, the process is as follows. We spend 5 minutes pre-qualifying the person. Where are you looking, or how soon are you looking to be here? Where are you coming from? How much are you looking to spend? What's your rent now? How comfortable would you be paying a little bit more than that if you were getting a much higher quality house, etc., etc., etc. Then we plant our seed. We plant the seed. So, Mr. Renter, I have a question for you. It's a shame we don't have any rentals here, actually, but do you have any investments? Or what if I could, another way to plant the seed might be, hey, Mr. Buyer, I know that you are only interested in renting, and I'm really sorry that I don't think we have anything that meets your needs, but if I could find something where you were going to spend equal or less money per month than you're comfortable spending for a house, would you at least be interested in seeing it? Right? We plant that seed, right? Then we talk a little bit about what we mean by that, right? We give them our message. You know, Mr. Buyer, a lot of people in your position are finding that purchasing a home is just as good as idea, if not better, than renting because they're doing 3 things, and I'd love to share those 3 things with you when we meet at the property next week. What do you say? Would Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon be better? That's our close. So we have our 4 steps of the process, and we also have our 3 arguments. Remember, it costs more to rent often than it does to buy, just straight up month to month. In addition to that, we have our mortgage interest deduction, which was the 3rd part of the argument. And then, of course, the most complicated one, but the one we absolutely need to understand, is home equity. And it's definitely going to become relevant again. I'm going to give you one 4th argument. It's really an objection handler, but it's one I get a lot. Scott, what can you do for me if in 3 years I have to move and I can't sell my home? What would I do? This is a fear objection. It's no different than any other fear objection that we get, but for whatever reason, when we get it with renters, we tend to look at it as a dead end. So I'm here to tell you it's not a dead end. What I want you to do is think about what argument number 1 is of why it makes more sense to buy than rent. What was argument number 1? Argument number 1 was it oftentimes costs more to rent the same house as it does to buy that house, right? So think about that as if you're investing. If you're investing in a house now, it would make more sense that if you buy it now and you spend $1,650 a month on your mortgage, you could turn around and rent it out for $1,800 a month. Worst case scenario, Mr. Buyer, what we'll do is we'll turn it into a real first investment that generates money on a month-to-month basis for you, continues to build up your equity, and offers you a tax deduction. And for those of you who haven't seen it, we actually did a segment on this on the Channel 3 News with Maureen Kyle where she outlined it. And it's a great opportunity to handle that objection, to go on our website, thenewhomesguide.com, and actually put that video and send it to your clients, because they'll see my face explaining it, a realtor, but they'll see an independent news correspondent explaining the value of it as well right on the TV segment. So that's a great opportunity to overcome that objection where it's a fear of what to do if I'm unable to sell. So that's it for sales practice today. Thanks a lot for participating. Why don't you go ahead and practice amongst yourselves and be ready the next time that I send you guys a rental lead. Oh, I think there's one now.